So I've talked to a few people in the recent past who have this sort of idea, this really sticky idea that I can't seem to wake up. I keep trying, I've tried everything, but it just eludes me. And these are people who've heard me say and heard others say, you're waking up to what's already here. And they know that. And yet that thought is so compelling that says, I haven't gotten there yet. I haven't realized something fundamental yet. And I'm sure of it, right? I'm sure of it. I'm sure I haven't woken up. Now, what if that's the only obstruction to seeing clearly? Is believing the doubt, that salient doubt, taking the form of, I haven't woken up, but the doubt isn't new. The doubt is old. It's older than you. It's as old as human consciousness. And it essentially just says, I'm not enough. I need to find. I can't figure it out. It can't be that easy. This doubt has all kinds of forms. But when we get engaged in spirituality or awakening practices or Buddhism, Advaita, it takes the form of, I can't wake up. I can't figure it out. So if you resonate with this, if this sounds familiar, if that thought is in your mind and it feels compelling and sticky, and you're sure it's true, it's not. It's just not. It's a thought. But the insistence that thought is real, that your thoughts are, and that thought is also symbolic of, in a sense, all thought. That no, I know my thoughts are real. The way that my thoughts define me and the world is real. It's true. I'm sure of it. But I want to wake up. Hopefully you see the conundrum and the absurdity. The mind is such a trickster. And the trick isn't funny when you believe those thoughts. When the trick is being played on you, or you think the trick is being played on you, it's not funny. When you realize you're the one playing the trick, then it's suddenly funny. How do you get to where you never left? What do you have to do? How do you become exactly what you are right now? What do you have to do for that to happen? But what's happening now doesn't sound like what other people talked about. And yet, you've heard, I'm sure heard me say, and heard other teachers say, don't worry about what other people describe. You can never have another person's experience, awakening, perception, mundane, spiritual, it doesn't matter. You can't experience what another person experiences. You can only hear their words and then take those words through the filter of, I don't have it, and turn it into the way you don't have it. The lacking ego, the ego that feels like it's lacking, will turn everything into lack. It'll use its own filter, its own perception of reality in the world to turn every piece of information incoming into the same exact story. And you have to see that you're comfortable with that story, even if it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable, but it's not as uncomfortable as letting go. Until it's more comfortable to keep holding on to that story that some part of you knows isn't true. Until it's more uncomfortable to do that than to really just let go. And sometimes that requires life circumstances that are out of your control. Life comes to your aid with disruption of your expectations, tragedy, all kinds of things. It doesn't have to happen that way, but it often does. But what you can do is keep inquiring into that. Why do I believe that thought? There's a thought that says, I'm not awake. What if a thought said, I'm a 7-foot giant? Would you believe that thought? But why do you believe the one that says, I'm not awake? I don't know who I am. Why do you believe the thought? And what happens when you stop believing that thought? The fundamental thought. That I know who I am. I know how the world is. Structured in thought, structured in concepts, memories, views. I know that's true. What if you let go of that fundamental thought? The root of what feels like you as you know yourself. And it feels like doubt. It's been a long time, but I could probably accurately say that what I felt like I was and the feeling of doubt were the same thing. I didn't realize that. I didn't realize I was taking myself to be this just massive doubt about everything. Primarily myself, but kind of about everything, about people, about life, about happiness, about what you do to make yourself happy, about choice, control, power, all of it. It all felt like this sort of density of doubt. Maybe shame. It feels really personal. We kind of call it shame. But its way of interpreting everything is I'm not enough, one way or another. I haven't figured it out yet. I haven't gotten there yet. I haven't woken up enough yet. I haven't reclaimed my awakening experience yet. I still don't get it. I've had insights, I've had shifts, but somehow it's still eluding me. What happens when you stop believing that thought? We have a fear that practice ends, but it doesn't. It just becomes pure practice. Life becomes pure practice. It doesn't have parts. So the fear that who am I without the doubt about myself is unfounded. But like any fear, if you react to the fear and you never see beyond it, you don't realize what it's rooted in, which is essentially delusion. Delusion sounds a little judgmental. It's just a misperception. So while I feel and I do, for someone who I can feel the frustration of, but I just know I haven't woken up yet. I can't figure it out. I don't know the way. Everybody else seems to get it and I don't. I feel the frustration of that and I do empathize. At the same time, there's something I feel like people aren't quite seeing when they're stuck in that place. And that is that there's a component of, trying to think of a nice word for it. It's an arrogance of knowing. Like I'm sure I know how everything is. Even myself, I know. Even if it sucks to know it, even if it's uncomfortable and painful and frustrating, I still damn well know it. It's true. It's a sort of confidence in our own intellect. I'll say it this way. It's a fear disguised as a confidence in our own intellect. And our intellect can do a lot for us in the scientific world, in the business world, in the really in the secular world or the conventional, it does a lot for us. There's nothing wrong with it. But it cannot do this task of inward looking. It just can't do it. It tries, and it frustrates itself trying. So can you let go of that? By grasping, trying, seeking, being sure you know what you need, where you're going, that you're not there yet. All of those evaluations about your own position. If you're evaluating your own position, it's not you you're evaluating. You're evaluating a thought. And a thought is what you're taking yourself to be. So there's a thought evaluating a thought. And your true nature doesn't care. It doesn't think this is a problem. It's never gone anywhere. It's right here the whole time. I could say it's waiting for you to discover it, but it's not even waiting. And it just comes forward when you stop. You stop the seeking game, but it's a hide and seek game. You have to hide the truth from yourself and then seek it. And then when you get too close to it, you'll hide it in a different way and seek it in a different way. An example of that, a common example of that, is someone who will say, I've been working with this particular koan or question or practice or meditation, and I came to this place where I just got so frustrated because it wasn't working. I got frustrated with it because it wasn't working. I've been trying it for 2 years, and I just hit this place of frustration and sort of despair. So I'm going to try something different. Don't try something different. That's the point. The point is to get to the place where you truly realize, you as you take yourself to be, can't do this task. It's beyond you. You have to relinquish yourself. That's what it means to relinquish yourself. Paradoxically, it also means to take the backward step into what you always were, or how this always was. This always is. Christ said, before Abraham was, I am. The mind cannot understand that. It'll just spin itself on that. What is your face before your parents were born? The mind thinks that's absurd. It's a silly question. To the mind it is, of course, to the limited mind. But it's staring you in the face. What is your original face? What is your original face? What is the sound of one hand? When you exhaust all seeking, all ideas, you exhaust the belief that you can find it through conventional means, it's right in front of you. It's simple and spontaneous. The demonstration that is the answer to that koan will be completely automatic. You won't be doing it. The sound of one hand will be demonstrating itself, simply and obviously. My Zen teacher used to say, become so absorbed in mu. That there's just nothing left. There's just mu. Mu sitting, mu standing, mu walking, mu eating, mu going to sleep, mu waking up. And this is best done during a retreat setting, but it can be done outside a retreat, certainly. And so he'd say, you won't need to come into Doksan, which is a face-to-face interaction with the teacher. You won't have to come into Doksan and explain that you've realized mu. He said, mu will walk in the door and sit right in front of me, and it will be that obvious. And it is. It's that obvious. Your true nature is that obvious to you right now, actually. It's even the looking for it. Even the looking for it, even the doubt, even the confusion is also it. So where can you go that you don't have to move to get to? Let your mind stop with those questions that I ask. The point is to stop the mind. How do you arrive where you never left? How do you realize what you've never not known? What is the sum total of everything right now? Just as it is. What is the only koan you don't have to solve? Because it's already. What question was answered before you asked it? Before you start to ask, who am I? Who are you? Who are you now? Right now. Don't look for it. Who are you right now? Before you sat down on the mat or the chair, who are you sitting on that mat or chair? After you get up from the mat or chair or cushion, who are you sitting on that mat or chair or cushion? What is exactly this? Where does sound meet silence? Just a fun challenge. Any of my Zen Buddhist friends want to demonstrate? Where sound meets silence? I won't call on anybody. It's a good answer. So this matter of identity is fascinating because we don't I think probably one of the big obstacles early on is we're trying to throw away the conventional self or something. It's not about that. Everything about you in your relative life, relative just meaning how you know yourself and the details and narratives and relationships and proclivities and hobbies and doubts and the inner world and the deepest places in the emotion body, all of that is perfectly fine. None of it's a problem at all. You don't have to throw any of it out at all. You don't have to eradicate your shame. You don't have to face your deepest fear. There's nothing you have to do to know, embody, live your true nature. There's just another dimension of experience available. Maybe I'll say it that way. And it's not even necessarily outside of the conventional. In one sense it is, but it's also inside the conventional. It's looking so closely sometimes that you just go right through. It's accepting so fully all of these textures of you, your life, your strengths and weaknesses, accepting so fully that somehow the lens just shifts and a whole other dimension opens. And that dimension does not have the same rules, structure, boundaries. It's vast, ineffable, intimate beyond description. It's impossible in various ways to the way the mind thinks about it. It's very mysterious. And it's paradoxical because it's very much natural, simple. So you can't miss it because you've never missed it. But probably, maybe, the reason it's obscured for so many humans until it's not is really struggling with ourselves, struggling with our illusory selves, or our created selves that we create and try to morph and change and struggle against moment to moment. We're putting so much energy into doing that. Being someone, not being someone, changing who we are, evolving, maturing, pushing, pulling, learning, unlearning. So much struggle. But again, what if every part of ourself, even in the conventional, is just fine? What is there to struggle against? And when we see that, we feel that, then it really does open a sort of portal to that which has never known struggle. Why can it never know struggle? It doesn't have parts. Doesn't doubt. Doesn't hesitate. Just is. The way animals move, the way trees move in the wind, just is. The way a rock sits, it's perfect. Does its job perfectly. So maybe none of this has to be about an event called awakening or kensho or liberation or any of it, but more about synchronicity. Feeling in, accepting ourselves and the components of our conventional self, accepting them so fully that we start to really know the cycles of nature intimately. When an emotion feels like change of a season, diurnal cycles, do you need more than that? When the relative is in line with the absolute, the conventional is in line with the empty, the unborn. And if it feels a little out of alignment, that's okay too. We practice. We return to the breath, one breath. One act of putting down the phone and sitting. Natural meditation. One moment of self-inquiry, because it only takes one moment. Letting that question drop in so deep that it goes beyond the boundary of what you can perceive as yourself. Who am I? Let it take you deeper, deeper, deeper. Beyond your beliefs, beyond what you know, beyond what you remember, beyond your physical birth. Why not just go along? It really only takes one moment. One full, complete act of inquiry. And another component of doubt that's interesting, kind of coming back to the beginning of this talk. There was a video I did, interview I did recently with someone named Catherine on YouTube. Very good video, very good interview. And we touched into this sort of final grasping place that she had right before she woke up, which was in a retreat. And this is someone who had a lot of spiritual history and insight and had done a lot of work already, a lot of emotion work and so forth. But there was something holding on. It turned out to be this funny thing, this belief that somehow, yeah, I want to wake up, I want to relinquish, I want to let go. This isn't just her, by the way. This is a common one. I want to do all that, and it's authentic, for sure. And there's still some doubt there, but there's this little thing in there that says, but I also want it to go the way I want it to go. And when I've seen this, often it takes the flavor of something that's very believable, because it's going to make you a better person. It's going to help you to help people more, because you're going to be whatever, teacher or a better vegan or whatever. All these things that are in the relative, they're good things to do and be, but your identity structure is the ultimate opportunist. It'll grab onto anything it can, including the best thing that's in you. So you have to let go of the best thing that's in you. You think the best thing that's in you. So yeah, to just generalize this, we can have this idea that we don't want to see, that we can hide from ourselves through the story of struggle. I'm struggling, I can't figure it out, I've worked so hard, I've done all this. But a lot of times when we put a lot of energy in one direction, we're kind of fooling ourselves that there's something over here we don't want to really see, and that is, I want to wake up, but I want to wake up the right way for me. I want to wake up and know what it's going to mean, how it's going to look. The one thing I can pretty much damn well tell you about awakening is you'll never know how it's going to look. By definition, actually. It's just the way it is. It's the way the shift occurs. The last place you look is it. You look, all of a sudden you're seeing behind your view, behind the view that felt like you in your life. You have to see behind that view. And of course, you, the view creator, can't do that, but you can relinquish, pray, inquire, let go, be prepared to be unprepared, and then life will find a way to pull the rug out. So yeah, to suddenly see behind that view is always surprising. So it's very human and very normal for us to want to not be surprised, especially about something big like who you are. Boom, right? You don't want, why would you want to suddenly be completely disillusioned about who you thought you were your whole life? Why would you want that? You guys are crazy coming here. I actually think that sometimes. You don't really want it, but you do. But again, there's something bigger than the human dimension operating here, so it doesn't really care what you want. But you can hold on so tight that, and keep applying that tension, grasping onto your ideas, your beliefs, what you want, that it can take a little while for reality to pry your fingers off. Or, again, inquiry. Okay, what am I not seeing? This is what I believe about awakening. This is what I believe about my story and my plight. I'm damn sure I want to wake up. And you probably do, 80% of you or 90% of you. But maybe there's 10% that doesn't, and you need to look at it. And that's the problem. 10% of you is like, well, and sometimes it's fears, and people are very authentic about it and sincere, and they're reasonable considerations for sure. And the common ones are like, what will happen to my kids, right? Especially if you have young children, you're a parent, you worry like, what will I do? Will I just go join a monastery and abandon my children? Will I, and that's a serious concern, right? Sometimes it's, well, what if I don't want to work anymore and I won't provide for my family? Things like that. So sometimes these fears are sort of out front and obvious. But again, sometimes they're really hidden. It's a control thing. I want to wake up, but I want to wake up the way I want to wake up. I want it to go the way I want it to go. And I don't want to look at it really closely because some part of me knows I can't have it that way. And that's what I don't want to see. So it's what you don't want to see that polarizes the seeking. It's the pole back here, the subjective pole. It's the one forming the view. And you're more comfortable with where the view's pointed at. I can't wake up, I've struggled, I've done this, I've done that, I've done this, and it just isn't working for me. And that's the objective pole. But the subjective pole of that view is often something you don't want to see. You don't want to look at directly or admit to yourself. So these are all just places you can look if this has been a frustrating process. And even taking spirituality or awakening out of the equation, I think it's hugely valuable to just get in the habit of looking for hidden motivations, seeing what's forming the view. Hidden beliefs. If I could give one piece of advice to essentially anybody, whether they are interested in awakening or not, would be find a way to and be willing to continue to find your own hidden beliefs. Because it always leads to more freedom, more peace for you and those around you. And they get subtler and subtler. They're very gross beliefs and very subtle beliefs. The Buddhist Fetters describe this in a realization setting, that the subtle beliefs, like there's a subject and an object. I'm a subject, everything else is an object. You don't walk around thinking that. It's subtler than a thought. It's subtler than a narrative, but it's defining your experience somewhat. It's binding you to the illusion of subject and object, of separation. This is what I was talking about, I think yesterday in the talk. At some point I was talking about the subject-object experience and inquiring into where the attention actually lies when engaging a visual object. And this is an interesting one because in retreats often at least one person will have that shift, where all of a sudden it's like they're seeing in 2 dimensions, which sounds weird, but if you actually take it, even conceptually, think about how the visual field appears. It appears as 2-dimensional. The mind adds a lot of depth and so forth, but it adds it through processing and thought.
Angelo?
Yes?
You have 10 minutes.
10 minutes, thank you. So it does tend to go through a stage where things appear 2-dimensional, flat. And sometimes it starts with the experience that instead of I'm moving through a world, something like the world's moving through me. It literally looks like that. You're not imagining it, it looks like that. And it looks more real like that. So like everything's moving towards you as you're walking. And it's all kind of one thing fluctuating, one appearance fluctuating in 2 dimensions or something. It's hard to describe it, but it's really obvious when you see it, when you experience it that way. And it can be quite intimate to experience that. Depends when it comes and how surprising it is to you and so forth, but it can be a little disorienting, actually. Well, it can be a lot disorienting for a while. It can affect your depth perception somewhat, but I'd say if you're ready for it, it can be quite enjoyable because you suddenly have much less of a concern about the physical body, because you realize, in one sense, there isn't a physical body. It's strange to say that, I know, and strange to hear it, but it becomes clear. It's like body world. Body world appearance fluctuating, self-responsive, shifting, morphing, but not really going anywhere. Just sort of reveling in itself. Yeah, and sometimes that specifically is so striking that even though I've described it that as literally as I just did, when it happens, people will still ask me, is this what you're talking about? It's like, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. It's kind of like someone rewired your brain or something suddenly. Can feel like that. But you can still function. You can still walk around and it just looks different. So yeah, I guess the whole talk is sort of about doubt in one way or another, and how compelling it can be. And yet, we really can see in one moment, it's just one thought. The reason this becomes about identity and ultimately about self is that what makes it so compelling is the sense that it refers to someone. That there's someone moving from moment to moment, some solid entity moving from moment to moment. And then what happens is instead of one thought, it appears as a continuous experience. Instead of just one thought, one sound, one thought, one sensation. Feels like, no, I've had a life, it's been going for this many years, it's solid, it's continuous, like a timeline. Really looks like that. And that makes it pretty easy to buy into thoughts if you're not really alert. But the more alert you become, the more you're able to just go, oh, that's a doubt. So inquire, as we discuss. There's many ways to do it. Or just use the senses, just look. Can I doubt that? Listen, open your sense apertures. Just take in all the sound at once right now. Can you doubt that? You can move your attention into thoughts and think about it, contemplate it, but can you doubt it on its own? It's just what it is. So you could say that this whole thing we're talking about, this whole subject is just everything exactly as it is. Sound is sound, sensation is sensation. Colors and shapes and forms are just what they are. A thought is just a thought. A reflection is a reflection. There's nothing more to say. There's nothing more to realize.